You know what's in a really bad spot right now in PoE? Melee, minions, and channeled skills. So putting them all together makes perfect sense, right? Hey there exiles, time for another once in a league PoE video where I'm talking about the nonsense I've been doing. This league has been rather quiet and, well, lackluster to say the least. Don't want to get too crazy into the rabbit hole that is the Lake of Calandra League, so instead I'll just talk about my build and what I was trying to piece together, which is the UnHoly Relics build. It's an Occultist, Poison, Holy Relic build. I've never played Holy Relic, and it always did look smooth to run through maps with, and since the league kinda killed off the crit minion meta, without absurd investment at least, Holy Relic builds went from about a 20 million DPS build to like 7 or 8. I mean, boss DPS of course. So I wanted to try something different. Instead of going the traditional Necromancer or Guardian route, I wanted to do Occultist and play with the new mechanics given to us this league, which was the removal of monster dot multiplier for minions, and the Ghastly Eye Jewel is now granting a chance to poison on hit as an affix. Holy Relic also received buffs in the form of Joffrey's Crest no longer having 20% reduced cooldown rate, and has 250% damage effectiveness now. So putting this all together, I decided Poison Holy Relics, or as I like to call it, UnHoly Relics. Occultist was the obvious choice here, with getting the added curse, the wither stacks, the reduced enemy chaos resistance, and of course Profane Bloom for all those sweet explosions. Necromancer really doesn't provide too much for us here other than a natural strength and some defenses with being able to use Bone Offering, which honestly may have been a better approach as one of my main difficulties was survivability. Now as I get into the build, let me talk about some of the key pieces and links for this. This isn't going to be a full build guide, I just want to get this build out here with a general idea so maybe people can improve on it. Since we're doing Chaos, I decided to use the Covenant with the new level 29 added Chaos damage support, which is super meaty, and pair that with United in Dreams for the extra flat added Chaos. Holy Relic is supported with Awakened Minion Damage, Void Manipulation, Awakened Unbound Ailments, Anomalous Meat Shield, and Anomalous Predator. Anomalous Predator also provides -4 to all resistances to the marked target, which does include Chaos Resistance. And Anomalous Meat Shield provides 5% more damage to enemies which are nearby, and of course our Holy Relics are always going to be nearby. On top of Meat Shield already adding damage to nearby enemies, and it helps them stay alive. The gloves I have are dual curse on hit gloves for Tempt Chains and Despair for damage and defense. Honestly, not the most expensive things to find as the new Val Temple drops ton of double corrupt cheap uniques. I just happened to find some southbounds with these and they have the curses plus they give life percentage, so that was a good score. Curses obviously going to be helping our damage and our defenses, but they also provide our pops with Profane Bloom. I do have utility minions in these gloves, Carrion Golems for the added physical damage, Spectre Apes for our frenzy charges, and then of course Meat Shield and Feeding Frenzy. I was working up to running an Animate Guardian with the Crown of the Tyrant for the extra damage and the fortifications, but I was always afraid of him dying, so I never really got around to it. The belt, we're using Darkness Enthroned, and you're going to want to get the enchant so withered enemies have another -6% resistances, which do help a lot, but that's also super pricey. I ran like 7 of the labs and never got it myself, sadly. I also have a bunch of Ghastly Eye Jewels with added Chaos damage and Poison chance with an Anomanu's Gaze for dot multi. But outside of that, everything else was just rare items to cover life and resistances and such. And of course Joffrey's Crest, because that's required for Holy Relic builds. There are a few upgrades that can be done to this build, like getting an Ashes of the Stars or a +1 Dialis to pump the quality of Holy Relic into getting that 5.0 trigger rate, but honestly that was way beyond my budget. You can also get Negus Aurora for fat defenses, which definitely would have saved my skin. But honestly, if I'm going to be pumping like 20-30 divines into a build, I feel like it should be performing a bit better than this sadly, but maybe I just did something wrong. So let me talk about the build overall and kind of how it performed. First is that the defenses I figured would be solid enough, but as I had mentioned, surviving some of the Delirious maps was a bit too rough for me. With nearly 6k HP, our effective hit pool and max hits we could take are pretty solid here as according to the PoE, especially since we're running 4 endurance charges with the Broken Circle Flask. We have about 1000 HP per second regen while moving, which I was trying to get higher. 2k was my goal, I just never really got there. Overall though, we can take a punch, but the problem arose with just the crazy amount of on-death effects and the insane shit happening on top of monsters that would sometimes just insta-give me as I was cycling through packs of enemies. Souls were also a notorious problem, which I could have dealt with boots that had, cannot be chilled, or through Purity of Elements, but then I would have had to give up Malevolence, which was a huge hit to my damage. Again, could definitely make this tankier with an Aegis, but not much else as far as I'm aware. So while the defenses were good, I just didn't find them good enough for the playstyle and the budget. Offensively, the damage was looking great on paper. Mapping felt super smooth, and I was mostly just mapping with this guy anyway. PoB shows that the mapping DPS is around 20 million, which is pretty great on paper, but that's kind of bait. You're never really going to have that many wither stacks on enemies that just pop before then, so realistically it's like 15 million DPS, which is still solid, but then you got to realize it's also poison, so it takes a second to ramp up, and that second gives enemies time to hurt you, and that's not good. It's not instant DPS. For bosses, we dropped down to about 8 million DPS, which isn't horrible. Bossing felt better than juiced mapping for sure. But again, if I start to drop 30 divines into a build, it's gotta do better than that. And I just don't see the build going too much further. With the Animate Guardian and the Belt Enchant and a couple other like min-maxes here or there, you can get reasonably close to about 10 million boss DPS, which is solid, but I wasn't gonna bring it there. And this build still performs better than most other Holy Relic builds I've seen, and I didn't want to do the whole Doriani's prototype version because that was going to be dead next league unless we get some crazy negative resistances again, but I doubt it. So I wanted to make this a build that was league proof so I could revisit it in the future. And while this build does work on paper, it is just a slight tweak to the traditional Holy Relic build. I do hope someone does put more currency or tweaks into the build to make it stand up to other minion builds, which honestly isn't saying much this league. Like outside of Doriani's prototype, minions ain't got much going on. But yeah, I just wanted to get the idea out there. Hopefully someone makes improvements on it or does something else with it. But that's all for me though. Thank you all for watching and good luck out there, Exiles.